Easy. All done. You were lucky, lad. The arrow missed the bone. It only needed bandaging, and I've done that often enough before. War is a good teacher. Can you stand? There you go. Good as new.
God damn it, asshole.
Thank you.
If you idlers nothing better to do, get back to work. You'll have to speak to Lord Divish. Can you manage?
Aw, thanks, buddy, for helping me out. Puppy! Ooh, lots of puppies. At least 2.
Sir, this is a survivor from...
I heard, Robard. Tell me, boy, what exactly happened? Did you see the ensigns of the attackers? And were there any more survivors?
So, I don't know what army it was, but it was huge. There were dozens of banners flying on the hill above Skalitz. The ones who did the slaughtering spoke a strange language. They burned Skalitz to the ground, but a lot of people took refuge in the castle. I wasn't quick enough. And as I fled, they shouted from the battlements that I should come and warn you.
The soldiers the boy didn't recognize. They could be those Cumans of Sigismund's. It said they came to Hungary from the east, and now they're the core of his army. Sacking Gutenberg must have given him a taste for stolen silver.
Skalitz is a small castle, sir. If Sigismund attacks, they can't hold.
Indeed, Sir Robard. And our small garrison would be no help, even if we could risk sending them.
You think we're next in line?
Maybe. What's your name, boy?
I'm Henry, son of the Skalitz blacksmith.
I know him. Did he make it inside the castle? I'm sorry. It's in God's hands now. No one else can help us. Anyway, thank you for risking your neck to warn us. Robard, take care of Henry. Make sure he gets something to eat and some rest.
Yes, sir.
And get all the people inside the gates. We have to prepare for the worst. Make all the necessary arrangements.
As you command, sir.
Hey.
You've done well, lad. I'm sorry for your loss. You must be all done in. Why don't you go to the kitchen and have a good meal? Sorrow is easier to bear on a full stomach.
All right, my dude. Oh,
I heard.
She wants me to talk to her. Is it her?
I can't understand why he
Seems
wastes
I'm
his
not
talent.
good enough for the general.
No.
He had a fine reputation.
Huh?
Hey. Let me talk to you. Here, hold on. Lady. Man, I can't talk to her now. I was gonna tell you what happened in Skalitz, but I guess not. I guess I'm not good enough.
Ah, milady. You are fortunate our good lady Stephanie of Talmberg has graced us with her presence.
My lady, I'm honored.
So this is our brave young man. Welcome, lad. Bojana here will take care of
You have a bald spot on the back of your head.
Tired and hungry.
Just saying.
Indeed.
I don't know if you know about it or not.
Be, poor soul. After everything he's been through, he must be as hungry as a bear, aren't you, young master? Here you are then. Eat your fill.
And a little wine to wash it down.
Thank you, my lady.
When you're done, you can go and rest with the grooms in the Outer Bailey.
No, that won't do, Sir Robard. After all he's been through, he deserves a proper bed. Let him sleep in a lodge in the courtyard.
Certainly, my lady. Young Henry here is overwhelmed by your generosity.
Yes, yes, thank you, my lady. May God reward you for your kindness.
Eat up now. You're in capable hands, so I'll leave you to it. Good night.
Good night.
Good night, ma'am.
When you've done, you can sleep in the bedchamber of the courtyard lodge. And don't forget to take off those filthy boots before getting into bed.
Man, fuck you. I'll wear my boots to bed if I want, but I'll go on ahead and take them off anyway, because I don't sleep with my shoes on. I'm not some heathen animal.
Please, tell me what happened in Scarlet's. I have kin there.
Yeah. I mean, he deserves to know the truth if he has kin there.
It was a fine sunny day until Sigismund came with his army. I saw him sitting there with his red beard and proud posture as he gave the signal to attack.
Oh no.
I ran to the castle for shelter with the others. Behind me I could hear the shouts of the attackers and the screams of the wounded. Then I turned and saw father trying to save mother. They were both killed. The gate was closed by then. The men on the battlements were calling to me to run and warn you here. And with God's help I made it.
That's horrible. You were very fortunate to survive. And God bless you for warning us. I'll pray for you, lad.
Thanks, my dude. Oh god. Oh god, blurry vision. I'm dying. Oh, I'm so hungry. I'm gonna die. There. I'm probably gonna get like a little piggy, but like it's fine. Alright, none of my skills need to be upgraded. Okay. Alright, and he said that I should take off my shoes, so I guess I'll do that. My feet are just pure black. Oh, okay. Just black little sticks. How do I know what time it is? First of all. Ooh, it's 10 o'clock. Okay. Alright. Let's go ahead and sleep, because he's, like, dying over here.
Today the patrols will be doubled. Keep your eyes peeled. If you see anything out of the ordinary, report it immediately. Understood? Yes, sir.
You're sleeping on the wrong end of the bed, my dude.
Yes?
It is I, Henry. Forgive the intrusion. I didn't wake you, boy, did I?
My lady, no, not at all. But what brings you here at this
Oh,
time?
she wants some fuck, huh?
I thought you could do with a little wine.
Oh, you're getting me drunk before
It's just what
you
need
seduce me,
to
huh?
sleep.
My lady, thank you. You really shouldn't. You could have sent a servant.
I was going to. But to tell you the truth, I couldn't sleep either. I thought of you while saying my prayers. How awful it must have been for you. I came to offer you solace, to let you know you're not alone.
Thank you. Thank you kindly.
You're welcome. Now, Henry, I know this is all very new and strange for you. But I want you to feel at home here. You're not to worry about anything except getting better. God knows you've been through a terrible ordeal. I know what it is to be left alone in the world, although your loss is much greater. But with God's help, the pain will ease in time. And it can help to talk about it, if you feel like it.
I mean, if we are trying to get the fuck, then we probably want to give her the, like, most sobbiest, saddest story ever. So, we need that fuck, man.
You might be right, my lady. I'll tell you what happened. It was terrible and unexpected. The day started just like any other. Father sent me into town on some errands. A fellow by the name of Kunish owed money to Father, who sent me to collect it from him. Only Kunish had no intention of paying. It got a bit heated, as often happens when there's money involved, but Kunish still wouldn't cough up the coin. Father was too generous for his own good, letting even a scoundrel like that buy on credit.
Oh.
When I'd done all the errands, I headed back home. I promised Father I'd help him with his
You're
work,
like
and I
barely
looked
on
forward
that
to it.
stool, girl.
He was forging a sword for Sir Radzig. The sword was taking shape when Sir Radzig himself came to have a look at it. He praised Father's work and said that with his smithing skills, he could easily make a living in Prague or Vienna.
You don't say.
But Sigismund's horde was already on the horizon, ready to attack the town. A horde of soldiers was amassed. Pennants flapped in the wind, the armour glinted in the sunlight, and the horses whinnied impatiently. They were waiting for Sigismund to give the command to attack.
How awful.
And then death descended on Skalitz.
Yeah, they killed my girl.
I looked towards the tavern.
So
and
I'm
saw a
single
group of
now.
humans chasing down my Bianca, and murdering her for sport. There was nothing I could do to help her.
You mustn't blame yourself. She's with the Lord now.
I ran to the castle like our neighbours to take cover, but I didn't make it. I had to find another way to save myself. The men on the battlements called down to me to flee to Talmberg and warn you. I was lucky I knew a concealed path around the castle. I needed a horse to get to the safety of Talmberg and to warn you all.
And with all that was happening, you thought of others like a good Christian.
Oh yeah, sure. Sure, that's it.
It was Teresa, the mill wench. She'd been caught by a gang of Cuman savages who planned to violate her. I had Sir Radzig's sword, and even though there were several of them and they were better armed, I had to try and save her. I wanted there to be at least one person I'd helped. And I succeeded, even though it almost cost me my life.
Okay,
After
sure.
that, I stole a horse
You're
from
just
them
like
and rode
stroking
off.
your dick now.
Like a valiant knight.
I'll never forget the horror. It will haunt me for the rest of my life.
And only your vagina can make it go away.
That's
Fuck me,
terrible.
please.
How could something like that happen?
God alone knows why he lets such things happen.
You poor boy. I understand your grief, but God is not to blame for the ills of this world. That is the work of Satan and those who do his bidding. Those who are corrupted by greed, envy, and pride. You must not lose faith, whatever life brings. Fate has not been merciful to me. and
Damn
my
it!
husband
She's
either.
taken.
Although in comparison to the horrors you went through. I was young when I married my husband. It was my father's wish. Divish was a lot older than I, but a woman must bear her lot. Shortly after our marriage, before I even got a look at Talmberg, the castle was stormed and my husband was imprisoned.
Really?
No.
My husband had some quarrel with Sir Havel Medek of Valdek, who decided to resolve it by force. He stormed the castle, burned down the village of Probislavitz, and killed many of our men, even the old chamberlain. He imprisoned my husband in the castle and put his own garrison there.
That's awful.
I was barely 18 years old, and all of a sudden, I was left alone with Sir Robert. We didn't know what to do. We went to Prague to appeal to the king and sought help from Divish's friends, but all to no avail. We tried for years, but it seemed I was destined to be left alone and my husband to rot in jail in his own castle.
Years, you say?
7 years. That's how long it took before Havel was condemned as an enemy of the crown. And even then, he refused to surrender the castle and release my husband. In the end, I raised the money to pay a ransom, and only then, by the grace of Lord Jesus, did I finally lay eyes on my husband once more.
7 years. And was Havel punished for it?
Never. And after 7 years, my husband returned to me an infirm old man.
Sir Divish seems like a good, strong man.
Certainly, only he has many concerns. He had to rebuild Talmberg. After he was released, the king appointed him Burgrave of Prague Castle, and he was very busy. He had no time for me at all. But at least we were in the city, and there was something going on. And now, we're here.
My lady, you're still young and beautiful. Your best years are still ahead of you.
Would that that were true, lad. Would it were true. But what am I doing bothering you with this? You have troubles enough of your own. I'll go and let you sleep.
Leave the food here, you bitch. God damn it, I didn't even eat any of it.
I enjoyed our little talk, Henry. Good night, and God bless.
Good night, my lady.
Henry, wake up. You don't want to miss this.
What is it? What's happening?
Come to the battlements. One of our patrols reported a company heading here from Skalitz.
This way? Oh, okay, there he is.
That's probably why they attacked so quick, so we wouldn't have time to join forces.
Aye, you might be right. I'm sure Sigismund ain't no fool. A backstabbing swine, maybe. But no fool.
You're right there.
Why are there just random people that have American accents? I don't understand. Hey guys.
What's going on?
I don't know. It doesn't make sense. Why would Sigismund advance on Talmberg in the night? Especially since he's lost the element of surprise after the raid on Skalitz.
Maybe it's not him.
Then who is it? The scouts Jivish sent to Skalitz to spy on Sigismund said he'd set up camp and was getting ready to storm the castle. And so Radzig is an experienced soldier. He'd surely hold the castle for quite some time. It doesn't make sense.
What else did the spies see?
Not much of anything. Before they could get close enough, this huge storm started. And you were right. Sigismund has a hell of a lot of soldiers, including all manner of mercenaries. An army like that costs a fortune. Well, anyway, we'll find out when they get here, won't we?
Aye, we will.
You know, I'm like, I understand that like the main character is a nobody, but why does everybody give a fuck about him? Like, why are they telling me any of this shit? Like, I don't get it at all. It's confusing.
Halt! Who goes there?
Lucifer and all his minions. Who else, Robert?
Sir Radzig. What a relief.
Is his lordship there with you?
Yes, sir. He is right here.
What are you doing up so late, Divish? At your age, you need a good night's sleep.
Well, Radzig, you didn't exactly pick the best time for an outing either. In a big hurry?
It was a bit of a scramble, all right. Believe it or not, this tempest is a godsend for me and my men. As my old granddad used to say, better a sore throat than a slit throat.
I'd say your grandfather was a wise man. Your messenger told us what happened.
Messenger?
The lad you sent to warn us.
He's alive? He made it to you?
He's here
Yep,
with
definitely
me.
evil.
He only got away by the skin of his teeth, though.
Thank God.
A brave young man. But tell me, friend, how on earth did you manage to get away?
Thank God for this tempest. When it began, Sigismund's Tatars crawled into their holes and left us storming the castle for more clement weather. We were able to sneak out right under their noses. The Lord be praised. We wouldn't have stood a chance against them.
Would you like to spend the night in Talmberg?
No, no. When Sigismund finds the castle empty tomorrow, he might come looking for us. We'd only be exposing you to danger. Without me and my men, he has no call to attack you.
What will you do then?
We'll march to Ratai. It's only a short way, and there we'll have a better chance of defense and enough room for all of these people. If Sigismund should come, better bend your knee, Divish. There's no point dying in a battle that's futile.
You're right there.
Is that boy still with you?
I'm here, sir.
You have courage, lad. That I can't deny. I am sorry about what happened. Would you care to join us?
I'd like to, sir, but first I have to return to Skalitz.
Are you mad? What do you want there?
I can't leave my mother and father. I won't leave their corpses rotting in the street. I'll join you once I've taken care of them.
Don't even think of going back there, you donkey. Are you tired of living?
Sir!
Quiet! I'm sorry about your father, but getting killed as well won't help him. Divish, make sure that lad doesn't budge from Talmberg until things quieten down.
Not to worry, friend. Anyway, he's injured and needs to recover. I'll lock him up here as if he were Havel of Baldic.
I've seen you've grown a thick skin since your tribulation, sir. But thank you. We'll meet again when circumstances are more favorable. Farewell.
Farewell, friend, and good fortune. Give my regards to Sir Hanush.
I will. And good luck to you and your people too. These are dark times.
The night is dark and full of terrors.
Men, tonight we'll have triple patrols. Sort out the watches between you as always. And if I catch anyone boozing, playing dice or slacking off, I'll personally break every bone in his body.
Damn.
I want you to keep a close eye on everything nearby. Sigismund will surely have sent spies, and likely men as well, to follow the Skalitz people now he knows they've fled. Keep your eyes peeled, and report everything to me at once. Understood?
Okay.
Henry, I need to have a word with you.
What is it you need?
I could use an extra pair of eyes, and yours are keen. Will you keep watch on the battlements with my men?
Oh.
Is that a request or an order?
I'd rather it was a request you answered yes to.
Of course I'll help. I have to pay you back somehow after all you've done for me.
Splendid. And don't worry, I'll tell the men to relieve you later.
Be a bit more careful.
What? Keep watch on the battlements. Just like walking around and shit. What's going on?
Wandering around like a stray sheep. Must be your first watch, eh? I don't think anything much will be happening today. You can just lean against the wall and wait till morning. I'll show you what's what.
I will. Thank you.
Did it! Take it. Take all of this. Needle? Wait. Wait, just wait a minute. Wait, hold on. Is this for real? Hold on. Oh. Is this like... Is this Arya's sword as a... Man. When I get 6 agility, I'm gonna, like, main the fuck out of that sword. That sword's gonna be, like, mine. Oh. Where? I want to see them.
See how the self-appointed king wins the love and respect of his loyal subjects.
Indeed, Robard. Sigismund of Luxembourg has a rare talent for winning people over to his cause. We may be in for a surprise, though. I don't think he will set his heathen dogs on us today.
Greetings, Lord of Talmberg. That's the bastard who led the attack at Skalitz and killed my parents.
Dude, chill. I know it's horrible, but you need to chill.
I am Sir Markvart von Aulitz. I come in the name of Sigismund of Luxembourg, King of Hungary and Croatia, who has resolved to strike against those who disrupt concord in the land and to restore order in the name of his brother, King Wenceslaus IV.
Restore order by burning and pillaging the king's estates.
Greetings, Sir Markvart. The efforts of the king's brother to bring order to this chaotic land are undoubtedly noble. It seems to me, though, that he and his army have somewhat strayed. As Burgrave of Prague Castle, I am entirely beholden to the king. And here in Talmberg, divine peace reigns until your arrival. To what then do we owe the honor of your visit?
Yesterday, His Majesty took action against the enemy of the kingdom, Sir Radzig Kobyla, who has been using the silver from the Skalitz mine to fund insurrection against the crown. Unfortunately, the insurgent escaped. Would you happen to know, noble sir, where he might be at this time?
As far as I know, the Sir Radzig of which you speak is the king's hetman at Skalitz. I find it hard to imagine that he would rebel against our king. Nevertheless, I can assure you that Sir Radzig is not at Talmberg. He would be a fool indeed to flee from one castle, where he has little chance of defense, to another, where he has even less. Or do you take the view that my humble manner is any obstacle to your army?
Am I to inform the king then that Sir Radzig Kobyla is not at Talmberg and that he has your loyalty?
Sir Radzig Kobyla is not here, and I have no intentions of getting embroiled in affairs from which I have nothing to gain.
Very well, sir. As you wish. I will relay your words to the king in the hope he will be as well disposed as you seem to be.
Those who have clean consciences and goodwill may find themselves well disposed even at moments like this, when there is little cause for joy. Farewell, sir.
Auf Wiedersehen.
What? How do y'all know that they ran? Y'all are down there.
Get on with you, Robard.
Oh god. Okay, it's freezing. We gotta wait. God. Jesus Christ.
What?
I need to talk to you. Wait.
God be with you.
Why did Sigismund burn down Skalitz and then come here too?
That's war for you, lad. Certain lords have resolved to take things into their own hands and eliminate anyone who doesn't share their view. Unfortunately, Sir Radzig is one of those. And what's more, he was sitting on a pile of silver that could help King Wenceslas's allies.
What happened in Kuttenberg?
Kuttenberg? Well, I'm just a simple soldier, but the good Lord gave me ears, and I've heard some things from Sir Divish and from those who fled from Sigismund's pillaging.
Were there many?
Indeed. But it was the Kuttenberg mercenaries who came to see me, because I knew them from before.
I see.
Listen, lad. These are all games of the high aristocracy. In Prague, a cabal of nobles rebelled against King Wenceslas, wealthy aristocrats who took against our king for reasons of their own. There's no doubt Sigismund had his fingers in the whole affair. Him and Wenceslas's cousin, Jobst. And that cabal helped him abduct the king.
So then why did Sigismund attack Kuttenberg?
Why do you think?
Probably that.
I suppose because it has a strategic position and good fortifications, so it can be used as a base for raids, giving you control of the whole territory and good defences too, if you need them.
Not at all. King Charles, may God grant him eternal glory, built Prague into a proper royal city, while King Wenceslas took a liking to Kuttenberg. After Prague, it's the most important city in Bohemia, in the entire Holy Roman Empire. He who commands the Kuttenberg silver is king.
So Kuttenberg sided with Wenceslas because he favoured it?
Now you're starting to understand. When Sigismund imprisoned Wenceslas and took control of Prague, the people of Kuttenberg began to raise an army against him. So with the attack on Kuttenberg, Sigismund killed 2 birds with 1 stone. He defeated Wenceslas's most powerful allies before they could stand against him, and also gained immense wealth.
Where did these Cumans come from, anyway?
I don't know much about them, only what the Chamberlain said, that they came to Hungary from the east and settled there. They're godless barbarians and merciless fighters. The nobles used to say the Hungarian king shouldn't enlist them, because they dishonor our rules of warfare. But when there's power and money to be had, it seems that honor isn't worth my spit. And believe me, it's always about power and money.
Alright, but I have to get to Skalitz.
So, Robard, I need to get to Skalitz.
What would you do there, lad? Sigismund might have left, but the place will be swamped with robber barons, brigands, deserters, and other vermin. And anyway, your lord commanded you to stay here.
So, Robard, my parents died there. I can't leave them to be eaten by dogs. What would you do in my place?
Sorry.
Damn it.
But I won't take orders. You'll have to wait until everything settles down, and maybe your lord will change his mind.
Oh, man. Oh, man. I'll find a way. Mark my words, I'll find a way. Hey, bruh. Can I leave, please? Let me leave.
Good health to you.
Are there any other traders?
Is there someone here who trades in goods?
Hungry, are you? You should go and see the cook. She's good-hearted, especially if you come with some coin. For anything else, you should see a fellow called Votava. Folk aren't too fond of him, because he's as surly as a wet cat. But he can get you just about anything. I saw him by the granary. You'll recognize him easy. He looks like he's never had a decent meal in his life.
That business with Sigismund turned out well in the end, didn't it?
Aye, that was a good start. Now we need to drive him and his war horse out of Bohemia for good.
I need to get out of here.
And I need a feather bed with a comely wench in it. But it looks like we'll both be disappointed. Sir Divish gave orders not to open the gate, and you especially are not to be let out.
Don't you know who I am, mister?
Let me out, I say. Don't you know who I am?
Someone is about to lose his teeth if he doesn't get lost quick.
I have to bury my parents, yo.
My mother and father were left in Skalitz like carrion. I have to bury them. I can't leave them to the dogs.
I'm sorry, my friend, but I can't. You'll have to persuade Sir Robard, or think something up so I don't end up in the shit for it. Otherwise, forget it.
What am I supposed to think up?
How should I know? Maybe some disguise so I could say I didn't recognize you? If a Talmberg soldier turns up all kitted out properly, in armor and a helmet, then of course I let him go. That's obvious.
All right, I'll have a look around for something.
Okay. Well, I already have armor. So, do I just need to go and change? Am I disguised enough for you now? Oops. Huh?
What the hell?
Don't mind me. Just a simple guard. Alright, am I good enough now to leave?
I need to get out of here.
Then I'm afraid you're out of luck. Ah, I see. All right then. But if you breathe a word about me to anyone...
Holy shit. Did I do it?
Hey! Open the gate!
For real? Oh my god, people said this quest is so hard. What the fuck? It's so easy. You guys are babies. Huh? Huh? What? What? What the fuck?
It's like they've already gone.
Damn. That's horrible. Can't even imagine it. What are you doing?
Well, I never. The pig turns up willingly for the slaughter.
Bitch. Oh, is he surrendering? Oops. Well, shit. This is really pretty music.
Sweet Jesus. It's the charcoal burner.
I'll avenge everyone from Skalitz, I promise.
Hey!
What? The fuck? Okay. Can I cut you down? No, it doesn't seem like it. I'm too short. I'm just a short boy.
Why would anyone do this? What did these poor souls ever do to them?
It's war.
Who's there?
It's me.
What's that?
The answer to my prayers.
Wait, these houses are still good. Are there people in them? A nest? What? What is it talking about? Where? Oh, up there? How do... What? What do I need nests for? You're not a bad person, are you? No, you're looting. You are a bad person.
Well, I never. The pictures that Willie...
I'll just like walk around, sure, whatever. I'm not that encumbered. It seems like I'm walking normally anyway, so.
He didn't run like me. He died with a sword in his hand.
Shard. Oh, him. Okay. Nah, I'm not gonna take his sword. Where's my main squeeze?
In the end, you were a hero. You didn't run away. Didn't abandon them like me. Why? Not you. It wasn't supposed to be you, Bianca. I'll find the bastards that did this to you. I'll find them. I swear it. Just wait a moment. I'll take care of my parents, and then I'll come back for you. I won't leave you like this. Remember you, boy, my dearest.
Oh. Wear it forever. I won't ever take it off.
Why did you do it to me, Father? Why? Why did you leave me? Forgive me. Forgive me for everything. Next time I won't run. I'll never run away again. I'll find the one who did this to you. I remember his face. I'll find him.
I guess you don't give a shit about your mom.
But first, I have to find the shovel and take care of you. I remember you told me you wanted to lie beside Mother. Here. Under the linden tree. At least I can do that much for you.
A dugout shelter is a form of smaller and more makeshift housing, one room dug into the ground with steps leading down into it. It was covered with a simple thatched roof. These were home to poor people or provisional shelter for woodcutters, charcoal burners, and shepherds who did not live in them all year round. In the Middle Ages, whether at a village or the royal court, the foodstuffs used were mainly those sourced locally: vegetables, primarily cabbage, onions, parsnips, turnips, beets, and garlic, and to a lesser extent carrots, celeriac, parsley, cucumbers, and melons. Legumes, peas, lentils, vetches and beans. Fruit: apples, pears, cherries and plums, and berries, nuts, seeds, and cereals. Eggs, milk, and cheese were available all year round. Depending on wealth, availability, and the seasons, there was meat, venison, poultry, fish, and from abroad, spices, fruits, and condiments, including saffron, dates, figs, nutmeg, pepper, sugar, ginger, and cardamom. Food was flavored with oil, vinegar, salt, honey, and herbs. The most popular kinds of food in the 14th and 15th centuries were thick broth soups, purees, and sauces for dunking bread in. The bread was rye, with white bread only available at court. During feasts, there were fish dishes, using herring, for example, roast meats, sausages, minced meat, and black pudding. Desserts were made with almonds, marzipan, sweet purees with fruit boiled in milk or with added cream, jams, and preserves, baked, fresh, or dried fruits, and assorted cakes. In rural areas, gruel and porridge of various kinds accounted for the bulk of the diet. Meat was expensive and hunting in the forest prohibited. All game belonged to the aristocracy, which was mostly compensated for by eating fish. Many ingredients that are common today were unavailable in the Middle Ages, such as potatoes, tomatoes, sweet corn, peppers, and rice, which later made their way to Europe after the discovery of America or as imports from Asia. Medieval kitchens differed in the countryside, the city, and at court. In earlier times, everything was cooked outdoors, while later, at the time of our narrative, stove hearths were built, which served for heating the home as well as cooking. Some kitchens had an open fireplace indoors with the smoke drawn off by small windows and fume hoods. When we speak of the so-called smoke kitchen or black kitchen, this was largely a feature of taverns, mills, presbyteries, and manors, which go its name from the smoke-blackened walls around it. Currency in the Middle Ages took the form coins minted in denominations corresponding to the quality of precious material used, gold or silver. In Bohemia, the silver Prague groschen long served as legal tender. The decimal system was not in general use. 1 groschen divided into 7 pennies, and those in turn into 14 hellers. Similarly, counting and calculating was done in dozens, 12, and 3 scores, copa, 60. However, since this would be rather confusing for us today, the smallest unit of value in the game is 0.1 groschen. Around the year 1400, the quality and hence the value of the groschen dropped significantly, with other metals being added to the silver. This was to do with exploitation of the mining deposits of the most valuable metals around Kuttenberg, central Bohemia, and Iglau in Moravia, and a shortage of goods for exchange with foreign countries. Economic and financial problems at the time led to growing anti-Semitism, a rise in crime, and ultimately the collapse of the Czech currency. Counterfeit coins were in circulation among genuine ones, despite the fact that counterfeiting was one of the most serious crimes and was punished by burning at the stake. Coins were circular and marked with a crown or the crowned head of the monarch on the obverse, and in Bohemia, the Czech lion in a square on the reverse, substituted by an eagle in Moravia. Smaller silver coins were minted right up to the Hussite Wars. The mint employed 2 mint masters to vouch for the precious metal quality of the coins under mortal oath. The prices of goods and articles varied locally and changed frequently. In the medieval, purely patriarchal society, the man was the head of the family, with the roles of women determined by their relationship to him: daughter, sister, wife, mother, or widow. Girls had a short childhood, according to municipal documents, reaching the age of majority between 12 and 15 years of age. Boys, in terms of territorial law, became grown-ups at 15. Men spent most of their time at their craft, trading or swordsmanship, depending on their station in life, while women attended to housework and family. Only a widow could obtain permission to conduct trade or a craft activity, with the help of journeymen, of course. Village women did not leave their homes very much or wander the vicinity needlessly. Some rules about venturing out were dictated by social class. While townswomen and noble women could venture beyond the home only when accompanied by their spouse or servants, the wives of artisans, merchants, and peasants could walk about unaccompanied. The domestic activities of well-to-do women included embroidery, cleaning, childcare, shopping, and playing musical instruments. Village women spent their time working in the fields or pastures, beekeeping, weaving, spinning, preparing food, knitting, and sewing. During the High Middle Ages, the ideal of beauty was a thin, pale woman with long blonde hair, small round breasts, relatively narrow hips, and a narrow waist. The most important thing was, of course, health and fertility. A woman in the Middle Ages would, from the beginning of sexual maturity, be pregnant virtually every year. It was not unusual for one to be a mother 3 or 4 times over by the age of 20. Births were complicated and aftercare inadequate, so the risk of death in childbirth was great. Girls were afforded less attention than boys, but when it came to honor, the contrary applied. Old maids, seduced daughters, and unmarried mothers brought the family shame. While boys inherited the livelihood, the parents of girls had to accumulate a dowry with which to compensate the bridegroom. The village of Rovna lies close to Silver Skalitz. Around 1150, a Romanesque church with a presbytery and cemetery was built there by the monks from Sau Monastery. The church was consecrated to the oldest patron of miners, St. James the Greater. The Romanesque frescoes are its most notable decorative element, painted in 2 stages, in the mid-12th century and roughly 100 years old. There was probably a settlement in the area where Skalitz lies today as early as the 13th century, though there is no mention of the castle until 1361. The development of the town was prompted by silver mining in the area as well as the existence of the nearby parish of Rovna. The owners of the castle included Jessic of Skalitz from 1384 and Bodil of Johannes, 1402 to 1403. Wenceslaus IV took possession of it in 1403 and placed it under the governance of the knight Sir Radzig Kobyla. Later the very same year, though, Kobyla was forced to flee the castle to protect the inhabitants of Skalitz from King Sigismund's invading army, which torched the castle and the adjoining village. The estate was never renewed thereafter. In December of 1403, Wenceslaus IV granted the remains of the village to Jan Sokol of Lamberg. The ruin of the medieval castle and its fortifications was scavenged for building material for the Church of St. John of Nepomuk in 1730. Today, only minor remnants of the gatehouse wall, the Zwinger, and the perimeter walls remain. This castle was built on a rocky promontory at the beginning of the 14th century, either by Arnost of Kaunitz or Froznada of Uschitz. For more than 200 years, the castle was the seat of the Lords of Uschitz, who were later renamed after their residents, the Lords of Tallenberg. In 1390, the castle came into the possession of Divish of Tallenberg. The same year, it was seized by Havel Medic of Valdic, who took Divish prisoner. Medic did not release Divish until 1397, when he was forced to do so by a decision of the provincial court. Only a ruin now remains of the castle in the midst of the residential development. Merchants were of 2 types: settled, permanent, and traveling, occasional. The settled traders had permanent shops in towns and villages, while traveling merchants only brought their wares to the markets. Markets, held once a week, and fairs, held twice a week, also offered wares by local shopkeepers, visitors and peddlers or hawkers, street vendors without a fixed site. Shopkeepers had their permanent shops on the square, merchants ran small shops and had the right to retail products they bought from artisans. Village folk got their supplies from neighboring craftspeople in the local tavern or from a merchant who brought supplies from larger townships. At the markets, goods from the village would be exchanged for goods produced and available in the town. The terms of trade were set by the ruler. For example, the only local merchant in sworn possession of freedom of the city rights could sell their goods freely. Only the traders from large cities would venture abroad. Many regulations and detailed rules governed trade. If it were found that a merchant was dishonest and, for example, gave short weight, he was severely punished. The Cumans first arrived in Czech lands in 1260 under the leadership of the Hungarian crown, Prince Stephen. They fought against Bishop Bruno and the army of the Austrian lords, which they thoroughly vanquished. The Cumans appeared for the second time in the 1270s, when they defeated the army of King Przemysl Otakar and went on to pillage Moravia. They last invaded the Czech lands under Sigismund of Luxembourg, who could afford no better mercenaries than the Cumans. Estimates speak of several thousand fighters. One of the places that succumbed to their ravages was Silver Skalitz, the birthplace of our game's hero. Sir Divish of Talmberg owned Talmberg Castle in the years 1390 to 1415. In 1391, the castle was conquered and Divish was taken captive and by his neighbor, Havel Medic of Valdic, though we no longer know how the dispute arose between them. Due to the king's inability to settle the matter, Divish was imprisoned in his own castle for several long years while his young wife, Stephanie, attempted to raise the ransom to free him. Thanks to the help of friends, including Radzig Kobyla, he was finally liberated and Medic was condemned for his actions as a rebel. From 1400 onwards, Divish held the office of Prague Burgrave and in 1401 moved his seat to Prague. Meanwhile, Talmberg Castle was repaired and he gave it to his wife. Divish returned there in 1414, and in 1418, his son Oldrich governed the estate. According to some sources, Divish died in 1415, while others attest that in 1418, Jan Kowski sold him Jankov Castle, where the Talmberg family lived until 1702. Divish had 3 sons, Oldrich, Willem, and Mikulis, who governed Yankov from 1433 onwards. In the Middle Ages, countries were constantly being crossed by marauding groups of soldiers, brigands, and guardsmen in groups of various sizes, or lone combatants, who often changed their place of abode. They lived in makeshift huts, shelters, or tents around a central fire. Some stayed at one camp for several days, others set up camp only for one night and moved on again the next day. One important factor in their choice of campsite was the ready availability of water, food, animal fodder, and firewood. Very rarely they camped in villages or by a castle or in its vicinity. This was reserved for overnighting by the nobility and their entourage. During wartime or while on the run, they would sleep in the open since there was no time to raise or break down tents. The noblemen's armies also camped at sites where provincial militias were gradually gathering or while awaiting the arrival of reinforcements or allies. The long-lasting, sometimes up to several months, were encampments of laying siege to strongholds or those on riverbanks, waiting to engage with enemy forces on the other side. Tents were intentionally erected close together for security, mimicking battlements. The largest tent in the center of the camp belonged to the commander. Nearby tents housed nobles and high-ranking soldiers, surrounded by simple shelters and huts for the ordinary soldiers and their horses. There was no need to camp together in one place, and an army could make camp across several locations. In the larger camps, there would be a field chapel, an infirmary to care for the wounded, and sometimes even a makeshift brothel. Simple tents in the early Middle Ages took the shape of a capital A, with a square base and a distinctive central pole mounted on 2 upright stands. The tent canvas was most often made from flax or hemp, undyed for ordinary soldiers, but variously colored and decorated for the commanders. The men slept on the ground on mats, skins, pelts, but the nobility and churchmen would have travel beds. Long-term camping was challenging logistically, supplies always being the responsibility of the administrator of the nearest affiliated township. If the army was on hostile territory, it would send out provisioning detachments to procure food and fuel. When supplies ran short, it was time to move on to another location or give up the campaign. The worst occurrence was an outbreak of an epidemic in the camp, since hygiene was difficult to maintain. While waiting for developments, there would also be quarrels, duels, and fights, which could escalate into a bigger conflict and significantly compromise the army. Disputes, therefore, had to be judged and, if necessary, severe punishments meted out. Conciliation crosses, or merely stones with a cross engraved into the surface, were erected in places where tragic events or important historical events in the life of the community or the country had occurred. They were closely linked to criminal law, a symbol of admission to guilt and a plea for forgiveness. The Conciliation Cross embodied repentance by the perpetrator of a crime, built at the culprit's expense. In addition, Conciliation Crosses marked the boundaries of estates and municipals. The Battle of Nicopolis took place on August 25, 1396, between the Hungarian king Sigismund and the Turks, led by Sultan Bayezid. Sigismund's army was made up of soldiers from France, Burgundy, Germany, England, Italy, Bohemia, Poland, and other countries. In all, it was 10,000 to 15,000 strong. The Ottomans, who at the end of the 14th century controlled the entirety of the Balkans, numbered almost 20,000. The experienced Turkish combatants routed the Christian knights completely, largely because the Russian and French knights disobeyed orders, attacked the Turkish vanguard under the misconception that it was the main force, and were subsequently crushed. Those who didn't die on the battlefield were brutally put to death, reportedly up to 3,000 men. The wealthiest were taken prisoner and saved only by paying a ransom, which they paid over decades. When news of the defeat reached Paris, no one believed it, and those who had initially spread the news were put to death by drowning for spreading malicious lies. The Ottoman victory was a triumph of Islam over Christendom. The Turkish army represented a real threat to European countries, especially Hungary. Jobst of Moravia was Margrave of Moravia from 1375 and Elector of Brandenburg from 1388. He also held the throne of the King of the Romans, although he did so for a mere 15 weeks until his death, 1410 to 11. He was the son of John Henry of Luxembourg and the nephew of Emperor Charles IV. He achieved his standing in Europe due to military and political intrigues aimed primarily against members of his own dynasty, particularly Wenceslaus IV, against whom he rebelled along with the Moravian forces in the so-called Margraviate Wars. He initially supported Sigismund of Luxembourg's efforts to seize the Bohemian crown, but in 1403 he began opposing him and together with Albert IV, Duke of Austria, took part in a rebellion against him. His previous support for Sigismund was probably motivated more by self-interest. It ensured him future influence as long as it seemed that Wenceslaus would be deposed and Sigismund or even Jobst himself would take his place. His campaign against Wenceslaus won him and other nobles many privileges. Then, in 1402, when the situation changed, he rebelled against Sigismund and was even instrumental in liberating Wenceslaus from captivity. We don't know whether the change was due to cunning or conscience, but to the end of his life, he remained surprisingly loyal to Wenceslaus IV. Towards the end of his life, he even stood against Sigismund in the election of King of the Romans and won. He didn't enjoy the crown for long, though, and died shortly after. Jobst was not only politically astute, but also a very thrifty governor. Many rulers, including Sigismund himself, were financially indebted to him. In his day, it was said that it was Jobst and not either Wenceslaus or Sigismund who was the true uncrowned sovereign of Bohemia. At the time our game takes place, however, he was in debt up to his ears. He was the hetman or governor of Prague, who, much like those members of the nobility disgruntled with the reign of Wenceslaus IV, saw in Sigismund of Luxembourg a better potential king. Their motivation had more to do with money and power. Wenceslaus offered them no prospects, while supporting Sigismund promised them a better future position in society. The period up to the 13th century was characterized by Slavonic names, mostly of pagan origin. Common people would keep names short and simple, like Odilin, the robust, Dobros, the good, Cheval, the praised. Names were also given according to the place in society. Compound names such as Drahmira, who values peace, Boleslav, more famed, more fabled, and Ludmila, dear to the people, were reserved for royalty and the nobility. Christian names were derived from Latin, Paul, Sylvester, Florian, Hebrew, James, Daniel, John, and Greek, Andrew, Nicholas, Peter. Once Christianity took over completely, only names belonging to Christian martyrs were permitted. In the towns and the countryside, the prevailing names were John, Peter, Margaret, Catherine, and Anna, while the nobility retained the privilege of using names like Sophia, Elizabeth, Jacob, Ulrich, and Herman. Additional bynames added information about the location of the family seat, social or religious standing, or about relationships with relatives. For example, in KCD, Divish of Talmberg, Hans Capen of Perkestein, Hanush of Perkestein, son of Henry. In addition, sometimes an epithet would be used. For example, Hanneken Hare of Valdic, Jan the Younger of Hodrick, etc. The growing population and the limited number of first names gave rise to the surname as we know it today. The surname was derived from the place where the person lived, like in English, for example, hill, woods, forest. From their occupation, coachman, miller, smith. From their physiognomy or appearance, ruddy, small, brown, or were patronymics derived from the father's forename, Davis, Littlejohn, or matronymics derived from the mother's forename, Marriott, Beaton. In the heat of the medieval battle, where most of the combatants had the same or similar equipment, the pennant or banner was often the only sign differentiating friend from foe. Pennants also helped lift morale and to organize the various units during troop movements. Around 1400, pennants and banners took the shape of extended triangles, upright rectangles, and squares. Flags were fashioned from colored canvas or silk, and the depictions or emblems were painted onto them. Most often, the coats of arms of the respective feudal lords. Cavalry carried small pennants on their spears, and craftsmen who were members of the guilds also had their own banners. The guild banner was emblematic of the profession and was shown at public ceremonies and at military and other ostentatious events. The banner of the Czech lands dated back to the 13th century and depicts gules, a lion rampant Q fourche argent, i.e., a two-tailed silver lion raised on its hind legs on a red background. The safe conduct document was issued by a member of the highest social tier to guarantee the bearer's safety. Most often, it gave protection in a particular territory during the journey, and sometimes the bearer was also provided with an armed escort. For example, Jan Hus received a letter of safe conduct from Sigismund of Luxembourg when he went to the Council of Constance. He did indeed survive the journey in good health, though the safe conduct did nothing to save him from being sentenced by the ecclesiastical court there to burn at the stake. School-based tuition developed only at the end of the 11th century, mainly in the monasteries and churches. Basic instruction held in Latin encompassed the seven liberal arts, the trivium, grammar, Latin, rhetoric, dialectic, and the quadrivium, mathematics, geometric, astronomy, and church music. During the High Middle Ages, there were two-tier Latin schools for boys. Girls were only very rarely educated. Indeed, education in general did not carry the weight it does today. Most noblemen and wealthy burghers were illiterate, hiring scribes and scriveneers as needed. Later on, the towns came to host centers of secular education, with the ultimate flowering thereof being the establishment in 1348 of an international format university in Prague by Emperor Charles IV. The main source of domestic light after sunset consisted of fire pits or fireplaces. If that was not enough to light up paths or dwellings, cloth or tallow torches, oil lamps, lanterns, candlesticks, or candles were used. Ceramic or metal oil lamps were bowl-shaped, sometimes with an ear-shaped handle. In them was a wick steeped in oil, later on supplemented with wax. In the richer homes, there were chandeliers with candles hanging on chains from the ceiling. In villages, there were simple lamps burning tallow instead of vegetable oils, and torches made of split lumber. Tallow candles stank, smoked, and dripped. They had to be constantly wiped, and the tallow collected for reuse, and therefore they were mounted on candlesticks with a bowl at the base. In Central Europe in the Middle Ages, beeswax was considered an extremely precious commodity, and also made its appearance as a means of exchange among guilds, payment in wax. After the coronation of Charles IV as King of Bohemia, a new and singular ceremonial jewel was fashioned, the crown of St. Wenceslas. It was made from the old primoslid crown, and the monarch himself dedicated to St. Wenceslas. No Czech king was ever allowed to wear it, but could borrow it for his coronation for a fee. The crown is of pure gold with gemstones and pearls, kept in a strong room with 7 locks above the chapel of St. Wenceslas in Prague Cathedral. The keys are held by the leaders of the Czech state, the president, the prime minister, the archbishop of Prague, etc. There is a legend that if the crown is worn on the head of anyone other than the rightful Czech king, the wearer will soon die. It is reported that during World War II, the Nazi Reich's protector for Bohemia and Moravia, Reinhard Heydrich, put it on and died shortly afterwards at the hands of assassins. The story is probably apocryphal, but certainly interesting. A tithe is the name for a compulsory tax levied since ancient times. It was paid to the parish priest or other religious institution. The term tithe comes from Old English and means 1/10, the amount of the tithe being 1/10 of the value of the harvest. The inhabitants of a monastery estate had the misfortune to be taxed twice by the church, once in the form of a tithe, the second time as a mandatory levy for their occupation of church land. In the countryside or during wars, people went outdoors to relieve themselves, to the cowshed or the dung heap in the yard. Houses of a higher social standing had a little hut built by the dung heap. At night, chamber pots were used, tucked under beds, and were emptied on the dung heap in the morning. In the castles and in wealthier homes, we would find a privy, a toilet located whenever possible in one of the heated rooms in an oriel on the first floor. There wasn't necessarily a door, and inside was a bench seat with a round hole. Not uncommonly, it was in the banquet hall itself, so one would not have to depart, and could even observe the goings-on at the table from the privy. Privies used to be in a niche cut in the wall, with a sloping vent shaft leading to the outside of the building. In either case, the fecal matter would fall freely along the castle walls into the ditch or down the slope. Privies were gradually upgraded and flushed through with rainwater. They might also have a flap added that discharged the excrement once the flap was released by a foot lever. Despite this, up to the 16th century, it was common practice to empty chamber pots out of windows onto the city streets. The basic agricultural tools in a Czech medieval village were adzes, hoes, shovels, spades, shears, knives, axes, flails, scythes, rakes, forks, and also plowing tools such as the beamed plow, turn plow, ard plow, and harrow. Each craft had need of its own special equipment and tools. Apart from resolution by municipal or territorial courts of justice, up to the 14th century it was common, though unofficial, in Bohemia to turn to God's judgment, or trial by ordeal. Guilt or innocence was proved by appealing to God. He had to judge guilt or innocence. A typical ordeal was to be put to the test by fire, hot water, poison, or dueling with the counterparty. The trial often ended in injury and even the death of the accused or the accuser. Bohemian villages underwent a significant transformation at the turn of the 13th and 14th centuries. Farmers became entitled to inherit their farms and wages, and trading began to have clear-cut rules. The village ground plan itself changed, from erratically scattered homesteads toward organized plots, geometrically arranged, affording plenty of space for roads and the market. The number of houses ranged from 20 to 25. The hub of the village was the common or public space, which served as a social, cultural, and economic arena. The limits of the township were fenced or walled. Kuttenberg is today a district town of the central Bohemian region, 70 kilometers east of Prague. The founding of Kuttenberg, the official name of the city in the Middle Ages, came about thanks to the discovery of silver ore deposits in the vicinity and its location next to Sedlitz Monastery, the commercial and economic center of the region. City rights were acquired by Kuttenberg in 1318, after which time the economic activity of the city was taken care of by the so-called Erbure, or royal clerk. To keep the operation of the mint and the mines to a high standard and safe, a list of legal edicts was issued, the mining regulative. The city soon became rich and had the same powers as the old town of Prague. The wealthiest inhabitants of Kuttenberg were the German population, while a lower class consisted of mine workers, smelters, mint workers, artisans, and servants. Almost every city dweller had some connection to silver mining, minting coinage, or trading. The treasures of found and mined silver supported the development of other Czech cities, including the construction of new buildings in Prague. The architecture of Kuttenberg is due to Wenceslaus IV. During his reign, the former timber houses were rebuilt in brick or as half-timbered. There were also churches, a sterling court, and other public works built at that time. Kuttenberg retained retains its Gothic genius loci to this day. The extent of the KCD game world corresponds roughly to an area in southeastern Bohemia around Sasau River, in which many historical heritage sites are located. The most notable include Sasau Monastery and the castles in Bohemia, Sternberg, Ratai, and Skalitz, of which only a few stones can be found today. Wenceslaus IV was a none too capable ruler, rather the opposite. During his reign, he was abducted several times in attempts to wrest power from him. The first time, in 1394, he was taken captive in one of his residences in Buron, near Prague, and taken to Wildberg Castle in Austria. The abduction was engineered by the opposing nobility, called the League of the Lords. In 1402, Wenceslaus was abducted for a second time by his half-brother Sigismund of Luxembourg, King of Hungary, who aspired to the Bohemian throne with the support of the high nobility and incarcerated in Vienna, from where he managed to flee with the help of loyal nobles in November 1403. Sigismund had in the meantime brought in higher taxes on towns and monasteries. Any towns that refused to submit, he conquered and ransacked. The conflict grew into a protracted civil war, which did not abate even after the death of Wenceslaus. In December 1402, during Wenceslaus's imprisonment in Vienna, Sigismund attacked Kuttenberg and by the beginning of the following year seized and ransacked the town. Kuttenberg was loyal to the king and staunchly defended by its miners. When they finally surrendered, they were forced marched to Sigismund's encampment near Kolin and made to kneel before him in the mud in subjugation. In addition, they had to pay huge sums of money in reparation, even though the town and its environs had been pillaged by Hungarian soldiers. The treasury in Kuttenberg held not only coins but also precious jewels, gold, and silver. Wenceslaus later estimated the wealth seized by Sigismund to be worth 1 million in gold ducats of the day. When the young son of John of Luxembourg, Charles, inherited the title of Moravian Margrave and subsequently the Czech throne, he embarked on not only economic but also cultural development of his kingdom, a period dubbed the Golden Era. In 1348, Charles founded one of the oldest universities in Europe. Many cities, towns, and castles acquired new fortifications and new bridges, infrastructure, and churches were built. To strengthen his position in Europe, he made good use of political marriages, thus allying his family with prominent families in neighboring countries. He even had influence over the appointment of ecclesiastical dignitaries. Thanks to firm rule and a policy based on the alliances, he was able to keep the peace in Europe. Charles was an educated monarch, interested in the arts, which was reflected in the architecture of cities, especially Prague, where under his rule many new houses, churches, including St. Vitus's Cathedral, and the city walls sprang up. The Papal Schism, or Western Schism, was a rift in the Catholic Church in the Middle Ages, during which there were two papacies existing simultaneously, one in Rome and the other in Avignon, France. It began in 1378, the year after Pope Gregory XI brought the papal court back to Rome from Avignon, where it had resided for almost 70 years due to hostilities between the Roman papacy and the Kingdom of France. When Gregory died, the Neapolitan Bartholomew Prignano was elected pope with the name Urban VI, 1378 to 1389. He, however, quarreled with the very college of cardinals that had elected him. They therefore declared his election void and elected a new second pontiff, Pope Clement VII, 1378 to 1404, who re-established the papal court in Avignon and was recognized by Scotland, Castile, Aragon, Navarre, and Portugal. Siding with Pope Urban VI in Rome were Italy, Germany, Bohemia, England and Ireland, Flanders, Poland, and Hungary. The schism continued even after the death of the original rival popes with the election of Boniface IX in Rome, 1389 to 1404, and Benedict VIII in Avignon, 1394 to 1423. The popes in Avignon were called anti-popes. At this time, European efforts to restore the unity of the Roman Catholic Church were growing. Unfortunately, neither the council nor the popes themselves were able to reconcile, as neither side was willing to budge from their demands. In 1409, the dispute escalated to the point that the cardinals declared both popes invalid, and elected a third, the antipope John the 23rd, 1410 to 1415. None of the popes submitted to being dethroned, however. The conflict embroiled the rulers of the various countries involved, among others Sigismund of Luxembourg, who took the side of John the 23rd. The Council of Constance was convened on November 5, 1414, to resolve the issue. The council secured the resignations of Antipope John the 23rd and the Roman Pope Gregory XII, and in 1417 elected a new pope, Martin V, 1417 to 1431, based in Rome. This essentially brought an end to the schism, although there were subsequently two more antipopes who continued to be supported by a minority, Benedict XIV and Clement VIII, who resigned in 1429, leaving Martin V once again the sole pontiff.